I spent $30,000 and 3 years of my life studying music at university. And I'm making this video so that you can learn these lessons from me without spending an arm and a leg. The first big lesson that I learned is to tame your ego. When I started at music school, I was 24. Right? And so I was going in there with a little bit of experience, and I was going to be in a class with 18-year-olds, right? Students fresh from high school. So I was going in with an ego, right? Now, I remember when I showed up to my first kind of like tutoring session with our keyboard tutor, Doug, right? And the other keyboard student, Matthew, you know, he was like 18, so he was a young guy and I was 24. And I remember the moment when Doug sits down on the keys and he's like, all right, I want to see what you guys got. And he plays this crazy thing on the keys and he's like, I want you guys to do exactly what I just did, right? And I was like, what did he just do? And Matthew sits down and literally busts it out flawlessly. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, no, this is not good. And I sit down and I'm like fumbling through it. I have no idea what it is. And that's the moment that my ego was checked, right? I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And that's what Doug said. He's like, Josh, let me just tell you up front, you're not as good as you think you are. And that was a really tough lesson to learn. It was a lesson in humility and being humble, right? You gotta tame your ego, because what was happening was I felt like I knew what was up. I felt like my skills were good. And then so when I was trying to execute things in these performance workshops, right, trying to play these songs and trying to do these things like transposing to a different key or improvising a solo or just holding down some chords, right? Rather than playing all of this cool fancy stuff that I thought I knew. Our teachers and our tutors were basically like, Josh, stop. They were just like, just stop, bro. Just shut up for a second. and it was really, it was tough. It was tough on my mind and it was tough on my character. It really took a long time for me to actually fully accept that actually I'm really not as good as I think I am. I really need to humble myself and I need to be open to criticism so that I can improve. Because that's the thing, when you don't have humility, when you're not humble and you have that kind of ego that tells you like you're the best and your skills are top notch, the problem with that is that you're already at the top and there's no room for you to improve. And what happens is you become closed off to the genuine guidance of your teachers and of the people who are actually really good at the craft and know how to help you, right? If you can't take criticism, you're not going to improve because you think you're the best. But in fact, you're not, because music is this infinite craft. There's constantly things that you can learn. Even the best in the world would still have things that they can improve on and that they can learn on, right? You just gotta stay humble. It doesn't matter how good you are. There is still so much room for improvement, and you need to maintain that humility. Be open to criticism and just accept it openly and be like, okay, they're actually trying to help me become a better musician here. The second big lesson that I learned is to stop overplaying and to serve the music. When you have an ego, you have something to prove, right? And that was me in the first year of music school. I had something to prove. I was the older student and I felt like I needed to prove my skills and abilities to the other students in the class. What that meant is that when we were doing all these performances, guess what I was doing? I was playing everywhere. I was playing all of my stuff everywhere, like this, just like this, on the keys, right? And guess what that did? It ruined the music. Because I wasn't honoring the music. I was trying to prove my point. I was trying to prove myself as a musician. Hey guys, look at me. Look how good I am. Look at my skills, right? It wasn't honoring the music, right? We're musicians. We are bringing the music to life, especially in a band context. You are not just an individual there playing some notes, right? You're part of a bigger entity. You're part of a whole unit, a band that's bringing the music to life, right? You need to be beneath the music, right? The music should be like number one top priority. You're bringing the music to life and you're making sure that the music is the best that it can be. And so what does that mean? That means pulling back, not playing as many notes, right? And just like playing what is necessary for the music at hand. And so as a keyboard player, you know, I was just like kind of ripping all these solos, like playing all of the time, right? And one of our teachers always said to me, he's like, Josh, stop. He quoted Joe Zawinul here. He said, what did Joe Zawinul say? Joe Zawinul, He said, we play all of the time, we play none of the time, right? And at the time, that quote really pissed me off. I was like, shut up, what does that mean? But eventually I learned what that means, and it's just like, it's a matter of pulling back and not playing so many notes and serving the music instead of serving yourself. And so in the first year, when I was like playing like, you know, in the second and third years, I was more just playing like right, and maybe like a right, so being more tasteful. Another thing is that you have to understand your place in the music, right? As the keyboard player, the keys it's kind of like part of the rhythm section. You're not standing out. You know, there are moments to shine within the context of the band and the performance. Of course there are. But 90% of the time, what's most important is that you're just laying back. You're just like playing some chords, you're accompanying the singer. I realized that actually the singer, the vocalist, is the most important piece in this entire performance. The vocals need to be on top, right? That's like the standout. You just have to ask yourself, am I serving myself with this musical decision, or am I serving the music? Think about the drummer who's busting out all these chops, right? Right? Which drummer would you hire? That guy? Or would you hire the guy that's like, bro, I know who I would hire, right? I'd hire that guy. The third big lesson that I learned is to master the basics of your instrument and of music in general. In that first year, I was playing all of my chops and playing all of this fancy stuff, but actually I couldn't execute it very well, and I was just making a fool of myself. And the reason why I couldn't execute it well is because I hadn't established a mastery over the basics of the keyboard. I could play all of these fancy jazz chords, but I couldn't even play triads and inverted triads in some of the keys. Right? There are so many areas of music and of my instrument that I actually hadn't worked on over the years because I was so focused on trying to play all of these fancy chops and trying to be all cool, look what I can do kind of thing, right? Serving myself rather than serving my craft. Right? That's a fact right there, man. There were so many years of my music journey that I was focused on trying to play all of these fancy things while neglecting the basics. This is like the biggest lesson that I'm structuring my entire brand around. Like I've got this keyboard course now called Unlock the Keyboard, right? It's a 9-module keyboard course, and it's completely free. If you want to access that, the link is below. I've structured that entire course, Unlock the Keyboard, around the basics, because the basics are absolutely everything. This is all about establishing a really solid foundation on your instrument. You need that foundation so that you can build on top of it, and so that when you do eventually, you know, start to work and refine those kind of high level skills, you can actually execute them and it sounds good. So what are the basics then? On the keyboard, I'm kind of like referring to, for example, finger dexterity, hand independence, right? Being able to play triads, being able to play in all 12 keys, being able to play and execute arpeggios. And then there are the basics of music in general, which is like practicing to a metronome and developing a really good sense of time, developing your ear, right? Ear training. And for example, like communicating with other musicians on stage, you know, having a sense of dynamics and articulation. These are all the basics that I think, honestly, we should be focusing on first before we start to think about and work on those more advanced things that we want to do on the instrument and in music in general. The fourth lesson that I learned is to strive to unlock the full potential of your instrument. When I started in that first year, I was actually a weak keyboard player because I didn't understand the full potential of the keyboard and its role in a band context, right? I just thought the keyboard was a little bit of electric piano there and some piano over there. But in fact, as the keyboard player, I was responsible for playing like pads and strings and organ and clav. There were all of these things that the keyboard could do that I actually didn't realize. And I quickly learned that if I wanted to become a really good session player, I needed to be someone who actually had a mastery over the instrument that I'm playing. And by the way, when I say instrument, this could also mean like DAW, Okay, so maybe your instrument is a DAW software. Maybe it's like Logic or Ableton. Okay, I consider that an instrument. Do you have a mastery over the DAW? Do you understand the full potential of the software that you're actually using? You need to kind of understand the potential of the instrument that you're working with and that you're serious about, and you need to strive to actually unlock that potential. That's going to make you a very versatile musician, and that's the kind of musician you want to be. You want to be able to fit into all of these different scenarios, because those musicians are the hired guns. I don't know if you've heard this term hired gun, but it's kind of like the best session player in town. And the fifth and final lesson that I learned is to find and build upon your core collaborations. I honestly believe that we shouldn't be doing this alone. We need a team around us, because you're so much more powerful as a musician if you are around other people who share the same vision as you and who want to build something with you. You can't do it alone. Yes, you can do it alone, but only to a certain point. I mean, here's a great example. Look at Jacob Collier, right? He's like a master of all of these different things, and he was doing it alone for so many years, right? But then eventually he had to get a team. Eventually he had to get a band, and he needed help so that he could do his thing really well and that everybody could contribute to this greater whole. Try to find those core collaborations, right? Those other musicians who you just connect with, who you just like understand on that deeper level, that subconscious level. Like, I know this in my case, there are certain musicians I've met in my life who I have that connection with. Like, we just know, we just know, we have that subconscious connection. We don't even need to say words, and we can just do music, and the music is going to happen between us, and it's going to be exactly what we both wanted for the music, and it's going to be better than what I could do alone and what they could do alone, right? You want to find those collaborations, and you want to really build on them and try to build something very solid. I actually made a whole video talking about this called Find Your Music Tribe and Thrive. I'll link it below if you want to check that out. Far out, it's so boring doing it alone. You can do it alone if you want to, but it's so much more fun doing music with other people. This is a lesson that I learned in music school, and in fact, one of the most valuable things that I got out of music school. I found my people. I found my core collaborators who I'm going to continue to build an extremely solid thing with, and I'm really excited about that. Okay, those are the 5 big music lessons that I learned after spending like $30,000. Actually, I haven't even spent that money. I'm in debt. I have $30,000 of debt that I still need to pay off. So look, I'm taking one for the team here, and you can take these lessons and you can become the best musician that you can possibly become and achieve your music dreams, okay? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm making these videos. And if you want to see more videos like this, definitely vibe and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.